The creation of a nation in arms was the first step in creating the modern war machine, because now all of a sudden, life was cheap. Not only was life cheap, but the modern nation-state was now deep enough to be able to truly take a punch. We fell out in extended order and lay down expectantly in a series of flattish depressions that some predecessors of ours had scooped out of the ground. Our ribald conversations were suddenly cut off by a marrow-freezing cry. 20 yards behind us, clumps of earth whirled up out of a white cloud and smacked into the boughs. The crash echoed through the woods. Stricken eyes looked at each other. Bodies pressed themselves into the ground with a humbling sensation of powerlessness to do anything else. Explosion followed explosion. Choking gases drifted over the undergrowth. Smoke obscured the treetops. Trees and branches came crashing to the ground. Screams. We leaped up and ran blindly, chased by lightnings and crushing air pressure from tree to tree, looking for cover, skirting around giant tree trunks like frightened game. A dugout where many men had taken shelter, and which I too was running towards, took a direct hit that ripped up the planking and sent heavy timbers spinning through the air. Like a couple of squirrels having stones thrown at them, the NCO and I dodged, panting around a huge beech tree. Quite mechanically, and spurred on by further explosions, I ran after my superior, who sometimes turned round and stared at me wild-eyed, yelling, "What in God's name are those things? What are they?" Suddenly there was a flash among the rootwork, and a blow on the left thigh flung me to the ground. I thought I'd been struck by a clump of earth, but the warm trickle of blood indicated that I'd been wounded. Later I saw that a needle-sharp piece of shrapnel had given me a flesh wound, though my wallet had taken the brunt of it. The fine cut, which before slicing into the muscle had split no fewer than 9 thicknesses of stout leather, looked as though it might have been administered by a scalpel. He continues. I threw down my haversack and ran toward the trench we had come from. From all sides, wounded men were making tracks towards it from the shelled woods. The trench was appalling, choked with seriously wounded and dying men. A figure stripped to the waist with a ripped-open back leaned against the parapet. Another, with a triangular flap hanging off the back of his skull, emitted short, high-pitched screams. This was the home of the great god Pain, and for the first time I looked through a devilish chink into the depths of his realm, and fresh shells came down all the time. I lost my head completely. Ruthlessly, I barged past everyone on my path, before finally, having fallen back a few times in my haste, climbing out of the hellish crush of the trench to move more freely above. Like a bolting horse, I rushed through the dense undergrowth, across paths and clearings, till I collapsed in a copse by the Grand Trenchee. End quote.